A You don't really care how you win, so long as you win. And the Missouri Tigers improved to 3-0, top 25 ranked win over Boston College. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered postgame show. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking down everything that we saw between the Tigers and the Eagles. Back and forth battle, but ultimately the SEC still stays on top. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe, because this is your new home for all things SEC football. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Make sure that also you're following us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave on Twitter at Mock10 Sports. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to check out all of our great work, make sure that you visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode and post-game show is brought to you by GameTime. Make sure you use the promo code SECU for $20 off your very next purchase. Guys, potentially undefeated SEC battle next week in Como. Make sure that you go ahead and get your tickets at GameTime. Use the promo code SECU, $20 off. Dave, we got to give a lot of credit to Boston College. They look better than advertised. On top of that, they also feel like a team that is going to make noise in the ACC. But when you have the weapons that you do, such as Theo Weiss, such as Luther Burden, when you have the ability to win potentially on multiple drives, and even though your defense did give up a couple of big-time plays, they forced 2 turnovers, you feel good about the direction of the Tigers now sitting at 3-0. A win's a win. It's going to keep you in the top 25. It's going to keep you in the top 10. You are in good hands moving into conference play.
Yeah, and Cole, we talk about it a lot on here too. I feel like this is the time of year. It's unbelievable. We're watching the South Carolina LSU game. It's been as unpredictable as possible. But in the first 4 weeks of college football, with coaching changes, player changes, the first third of the season, a lot of these teams internally don't even know what they're doing, what they expect game to game. Eli Drinkwitz has to be fired up. We're like, hey, you said it, Cole, at the beginning of the show. Golf clap to Bill O'Brien and the Boston College Eagles, dude. And they competed and went out there and they played with Missouri, dude. It wasn't like some fluke back and forth. It was Missouri got a hard-earned win, but they won. They beat a team at the top. They got a top 25 win. The good thing is, though, you got to win, and you have a lot of things you can go fix. If I'm Eli Drinkwitz with the schedule I have, I kind of like I can be like, hey, guys, like, we won. It's hard to win in college football. We need to appreciate every win that we can possibly get here. But I think the thing we got to factor in here is we have some things we got to go work on ourselves on both sides of the line of scrimmage and both sides of the football. So I think he's probably a little bit like, from a coach standpoint, I'm going to get my guys motivated.
No, of course you are. But at the same time, let's go ahead and give credit where credit's due. Corey Batoon coming on in for Blake Baker. A lot of people had questions about him because even though he was the de facto DC at South Alabama, Kane Womack was the play caller. He had final say over the book. He had final say over what was going to be the formation. And so you get a guy that has experience coaching in the conference. You have a guy that has experience coaching and recruiting in the area, but there still are multiple questions about what he can do. And for the most part, you took away several explosive plays, you forced turnovers in this game, and you eliminated one side of the offense. The big part about this Boston College offense is they know how to run the football. Treshaun Ward, you look back at that game at Doak Campbell, really promising performance. Thomas Castellanos, what a dude. I mean, the dude is absolutely not just a normal quarterback. He is somebody that you have to game plan for. He is somebody that will give you that emphasis on making sure that if you eliminate one of his dual threat mentalities, you're going to help this game be a lot better. They held him to a team-high 25 yards as a unit. The run defense, 1.8 yards per play. You're looking at this and saying, we know that if we play more consistent on offense and if our defense can make sure that we take away several of those red zone opportunities, we're in a great spot. And that's what you look at when talking about this Missouri team. That's what you care about when it comes to this Missouri team.
No, you're 100% right. Like, the run game was phenomenal. When I was watching it, I'm actually fired up to go back tomorrow and actually watch the full game, dive in a little deeper. I want to see how Corey Flagg played against Thomas Castellanos. But you're right. I mean, you just said it. They held him to 1 yards, 46 total yards rushing. That's hard to do. That's hard to do. It's like you said, give Corey Batoon credit. I mean, they had a lot of turnover between coaches and losing probably their 3 best players on all 3 levels. Defense, give up 21 points to a pretty good offense, an NFL-minded offensive coordinator schemer like Bill O'Brien. And you give it up what now, Cole? 21 points on the year?
21 points on the year in 3 games, and one was against a top 25 team. It was very undisciplined, but at the same time, when the moments mattered, it did. Let's talk about the explosive plays, because that was really important. You get in the start of the second quarter, 67-yard pass to Reed Harris. End of the game, Kamari Morales, 38-yard pass. It makes things interesting. It was a game to where, yes, you aren't feeling too confident because there are so many things that you want to look at, but at the same time, a win is a win. The other thing that's really important here is that you have the weapons, and the weapons are going to be something that keeps you afloat. Let's talk about Nate Noel. Guy was able to finish with over 100 rushing yards. Talk about Brady Cook, 2 touchdowns on the day, 1 passing, 1 rushing. Marcus Carroll picked up multiple first downs. It was a sloppy game, but at the same time, it was a game where you saw your guys who you believe are X factors, leaders in the locker room of this team, be able to deliver. That doesn't mean there are not mistakes. That does not mean that there aren't things that need to be corrected and should be fixable before you go into major matchups against Texas A&M, games against Arkansas, games against, of course, we know Oklahoma, games against Alabama. They got to be fixed. It is a win, and it's a top 25 win. That's going to strengthen your resume. But we also know that this is a game where if you allowed another opponent that has a little bit more of that veteranship, you might end up having a loss. And it may be an egregious loss that one was preventable.
No, I mean, I totally agree. Am I crazy for thinking this, Cole? You know, I really don't think it's too crazy of a comment because the quantity, which I mean, the kid at left was quite, but I would take the Nate Noel, Marcus Carroll combo over just Cody Schrader himself. I don't think that's too wild to think about, really. Do you?
I don't think it's crazy. What I think it is that you always want to have that secondary guy, and you're okay with that secondary guy. And that's really the big difference of this team. You know that you have the speed and the power, the combination of the two, depending on what field position you're at. You can call number 8, you can call number 9. They can find a way to win at the point of emphasis, and they can also keep the sticks moving. I think that that's really where you look at Cody Schrader. The thing about him was he was that offensive on the ground. He was that entire unit. He was that consistent playmaker. You don't have to worry about that if we're talking about now Nate Noel. He's speed. Marcus Carroll, he's power. And then you also got to go ahead and attest to Brady Cook having legs. That is another point of emphasis.
Yeah. It's an underrated part of it.
It's a very underrated part of this offense.
No, I'm a little bit more impressed with Missouri than I was disappointed. More impressed with Boston College than I was just disappointed in Missouri. But give them credit, man. I was impressed with Boston College. That's gonna be somebody I'm gonna continue to watch in the ACC. Again, like I said about Missouri, they got to clean up penalties. They had one of them 8. So some things you left, like I always say, the famous comment I always say, you left some meat on the bone. But I think Missouri can take a lot from this in the win. I mean, I really do.
They can take a lot. They absolutely can take a lot. The thing is also that you can take away is the fact that this is a team that still has weapons. And this is a team that still has the ability to
schedule still beneficial, I think, right? As we speak again, but me and you talked about it, Cole. The schedule's a little more tougher now before that trip to Kyle Field than we thought. I mean, if Vanderbilt takes care of business tonight, you just played 3 out of your first 4 opponents. I'm just padding the stats here for Missouri, Cole. Don't kill me here. You played 3 out of your first 4 opponents were undefeated when they played you. I understand Murray State couldn't have lost a game. You played them week 1, but stat still stands. If Vanderbilt wins tonight, you played 3 out of your first 4 opponents that had 0 losses in. A lot of teams can't say that. So again, I was one. It was kind of harsh on that schedule immediately, but as we see, college football first 4 weeks in today's time, unpredictable. Boston College, I think at the end of the year is going to look like a solid win for them.
I think so. I think the other thing is that when you look at Bill O'Brien coming from that NFL background and having a certain brand of football that they demand excellence, it helps out with setting a standard for a young team. It also helps that when you go to a program, you have a quarterback that last year found success and continue that success this year. It's a plug-and-play addition to how you want to run your offense. You also have a guy who has experience calling plays and various styles of units with different players that pays well in your dividends and in your favor. But at the same time, again, when you look at Missouri, they were able to capitalize on multiple occasions. It was a slow start. It was a very undisciplined start. But you also watched as this team showed you why in the SEC, you can deliver. You can absolutely show the way that this is a team that goes out on top. And I got to give a lot of credit. You had players step up. Luther Burden, 6 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Did he have a fumble? Yeah. Was it also not that big of a deal at the end of the day? Absolutely. Mookie Cooper, 18.3 yards per play. Theo Weiss, 10.6 yards per play. You also saw Josh Manning come up with a first down grab. You saw Marquise Johnson get involved a little bit. 4.1 yards on the ground, 2 turnovers through the air. It's enough to where you say, hard hat to hard hat, we can build off of this. And a win's a win. And sometimes you'll see the frustration where There was a moment, and it was the 2nd and 56 call. Like, it was, I had to go ahead and check my phone to be like, no, that's a graphic mistake. Nope, they hiked the ball. Absolutely. But I look at this team, and I say, correctable. You know, when you watch a game and you say, this is going to be your identity for the rest of the year, and you just got to go ahead and embrace that hopefully you won't be the one last holding the stick, and you will have to be playing from behind. I don't feel that way about Missouri right now. I feel like everything that I've seen is still correctable. It doesn't mean that there aren't flaws, and that doesn't mean that if it's on any other Saturday against a team like maybe South Carolina, against a team like maybe Vanderbilt, against a team like Arkansas with their aggressive offense, that doesn't mean that they can't hold their own. What I'm saying is that if you learn to build off of this game and use the mistakes in this game as a matchup that play in your favor next week, well, now you feel that much more confident and you're sitting at 4-0, then 5-0. And then that momentum carries you when you know you're bowl eligible, you're ranked. And the other part that's really important, Dave, they're already in the top 10 of the AP poll. They're already in the top 10 of where you look at this team probably garnering college football playoff votes.
Yeah.
If you don't lose, you don't move down. You may move down a spot, but you're not moving out. And that's really where I look at this team right now. They're in a great position because of their seeding spot to where when these matchups play against Alabama, against potentially an Arkansas, against a South Carolina, you feel that much better about this team.
Yeah, no, and I thought Missouri can come back quickly too. They were in a hole and like they were up at halftime, 17-14, so they can come back, roar. I think they're a pretty good matchup against a team like Alabama with some Alabama secondary holes. If Brady Cook can take, as I call those, Steve Kerr draw-up plays for Steph Curry that are just layups in the corner, you got to hit some of those threes with the weapons you have on the outside. But yeah, I'm not going to change any power ratings or how I feel about Missouri, dude. Everybody outside of so far Georgia, Texas, and Ole Miss have kind of had some moments in games, even Georgia in the first half against Clemson, where you would be a little bit like, okay, I see a little bit of a flaw. But again, dude, you got a top 25 win at home in week 3, and you got stuff to build on. Honestly, that's a coach's dream. That should be a fan base's dream too, man. I mean, it's kind of, to be fair to Eli Drinkwitz and expectations now. I know some people in the comments, a little disappointed, but I mean, it's kind of the expectations he's raised to in Columbia, really. I mean, we're upset a little bit about a 24th ranked home win against a pretty good Boston College football team.
But isn't it supposed to be the standard? You know, you look at last year and what you returned. You look at the names that came into the portal that were difference makers. You look at how you were able to go out and add in pieces that you feel a lot more confident in than you would if you had to turn to guys who were entering their sophomore year. And now you realize we can win with this offensive unit. You return all 5 of your leading receivers. On top of that, you also return your starting quarterback. You upgrade in terms of the quantity, maybe not the quality of running back. You still have playmakers on the defense that did return for another year. And 11 wins was possible. You watched last year in Como what many people thought would be a one-and-done season. And Eli Drinkwitz said multiple times, we stand on business. We stand on a certain brand of Tiger football. And that is the emphasis that you put on. And you know what? Credit to him for getting down on a guy like Luther Burden, who he knows is a difference maker. He knows is an elite player. 50% healthy Luther Burden is better than 100% version of most wide receivers in the game. So I look at that and I say, you know what the expectation is. There was so many moments that could have been in your favor. There was moments where you should have easily pulled away. You didn't. But a win is a win. And that's the point I'm going to keep going back to. Top 25 game on the resume against a team that also many people weren't considering to be that special, that ends up looking pretty decent and will be at least at the end of the day in the ACC. A tough out, a very tough out for other opponents.
Yeah, I think that's what we look at. If they're healthy, I think they will get to 6 in the ACC and Bill O'Brien's first year, which is a success.
I will say you are going to have to see a better version of Brady Cook. I think that
our boy Luther Stan down here said, I agree. And that's what even in my show, I've talked about a little bit at times. Like, you like Brady Cook? I feel like he is kind of just a system guy. That's a compliment to Eli Drinkwitz and Kirby Moore. But he does leave some on the table at times that you're like, man, dude, when you play in Tuscaloosa at Alabama, if you leave 2 of them on the board and they're wide open, you miss Luther Burden, you may be losing a very close game where you're going back reviewing the film on Sunday or on the plane back. You're like, we left some meat on the bone. Something like that. That leaves you a little bit concerned. I mean, as an overall player, you're not worried about it within this system. Just when you need some big explosive plays, he's left some on the board. I think that's all fair if you go back and watch the film.
Definitely fair. I think the other part that's fair is that in a game where you have ways to win, you do. But I also want to give a huge shout out to Drayden Norwood. I want to give a huge shout out to Travis Johnson. They came up on critical drives where you saw momentum starting to lean in favor of Boston College, and they sucked it out of the stadium and right back onto the offensive side. And in one of those plays, they capitalized. So that's what you hold your hat on to, is that the new pieces that are coming in were making plays. The pieces that have been inside this building were making plays. Your offense was able to drive in certain moments. A lot of meat left on the bone. A lot of mistakes that are correctable, a lot of things that you need to see different before you play against an Alabama, before you play against an Oklahoma, before you play against a South Carolina and Arkansas. But also, there's enough to like about this team where you say at the end of the day, we have an emphasis on how to win. We have a way that we know we can win. There's so much in that sense of we can, we will. And just the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, just because if you haven't seen an elite performance from Brady Cook doesn't mean that there isn't one out there.
At some point, he's going to have some massive 5-touchdown, 350 plus 400 game. I have a feeling like at some point he's going to do it.
You're going to watch it happen. I don't know when it will be. Maybe it's next week against Vanderbilt. But I will say, you do look at this team and you say to yourself, we don't want him hanging around late. And also, if you're internally looking at this, you say to yourself, we have got to fix the minor mistakes, because of when they end up playing against a better opponent or an opponent in the SEC where these games come down to the wire, minor miscues could lead to major errors and ultimately a loss at the end of the day.
Great. Good game. I mean, it was a better game we thought going into the year. Like I said, good challenge. They get the dub while get to learn some of their mistakes.
Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that also you hit the ring notification and subscribe down below. We got live shows, instant reaction coming up in moments against South Carolina versus LSU. We're talking Florida. We're talking at Texas A&M. We're talking Georgia. We're talking Kentucky. Maybe we're going to be talking about another game that we haven't even thought of yet, but you want to make sure that you stay involved. Make sure you hit the ring notification and the subscribe button down below. Follow Dave on Twitter at Mock10Sports, me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. Download the podcast version of the show and check out all of our great work at SECunfiltered.com. MIZ out.
ZOU.